That night, I couldn't blink. I was all the time thinking that I want to be a director.
Mariam Chachia is a Georgian documentary filmmaker whose latest movie, Magic Mountain, made together with her partner Nik Voight, won international recognition but was censored in Georgia.
Now my film is a cultural heritage.
Yes, absolutely. Mariam is both a tuberculosis and cancer survivor. We talk about her experience and about the challenges of being a female documentary filmmaker in Georgia. Mariam, you are a filmmaker, documentary filmmaker. You are a mother of 3 beautiful girls. And you're also a breast cancer survivor. I want to talk about all of these things in this episode. But first, because this podcast is about women who are living their lives true to their calling, is that also you? Is filmmaking your true calling?
Definitely. And I can say, because I didn't study in a film school. I didn't choose this profession because I had some kind of a dream from my childhood to be a documentary filmmaker. I chose this profession because once I appeared in this field because I was making a film about my grandma. I just wanted to make some kind of a historical film about my grandma. And that time I had a very good advertising company who was earning very well. And I was, after making this film, it was quite successful, so I had another offer with another French producer, and I needed to choose how to continue with the documentary films or with my advertising company. And it was very easy to make a choice to close the company and jump to this documentary field. And it's just because it was very easy to choose, because I understood that I liked myself being in this field. I liked myself. So that was a...
You were feeling that you were in your element.
I understood that, so I'm not so much stressed about my life now. Of course, there is a lot of stress, so how I can find money for film, or will it be a good film, or how people will react, but it's not existential questions. But before, I guess, I was thinking that what I am doing, why I am working, what I will leave after me. But now it's not that I'm doing something very special, but I feel that I'm doing something very important. And I think it's very important.
Even though in filmmaking, as a lot of people know, there's very little money, isn't it, compared to advertising?
Yeah, of course. And documentary filmmaking is not my main job to live.
Source of income.
Yes, I do also other things. I make some kind of also commercial things. I also help to the foreign films who comes in Georgia to organize the shootings, documentary films. And that is main income. But documentary film, I can't say that it's a hobby. It's really my profession, but it's not my main income. You can't really survive only with making documentary films.
And when you were making this film about your grandmother, were you quite young? How old were you?
No, I was 28, so I was already person who already had some plans in life, so I wasn't a teenager.
But making that film was transformational for you, because it landed you where you're now, where you spent the last 10 years, and you've made 3 documentary films, full-length documentary films.
Yes, as a director. As a director, so I just finished the 3rd full-length documentary, but I also produced 2 full-length documentary and 2 shorts. Yeah.
But let's go back to where it all began, because I read somewhere that you were directing children's series called Rubber. What was that all about some years ago?
Yeah, somehow I try to forget that.
Why? Are you embarrassed about
No,
it?
no, no. It was. I think it was great experience for me because I finished the drama directing and I had a very big experience in a theater. And this Rabber Sashleli was my first experience to make something with a script, or it wasn't really films. It was like a small sketches for kids, and it was a great experience. But I can't really call it like a good work, because we were doing like one day the script was coming, so next day we were doing like 2 or 3 sketches we were filming, and the third day we were editing. So it was more like commercial stuff than the films, but it was a good experience because anyway it needed to have this dramaturgy, which after I understood how can I build dramaturgy with a camera in my documentaries, and that's why I mean that it was a good experience.
But you've done other stuff for kids as well. You've created like a club, like cinema, kids club?
It was kids club, yeah. And me with my friend Anu Kalomidze, so we had this idea that the kids can express themselves with a discussion after the film, and we were choosing mainly like world masterpieces and art house films to show kids. It was 2 age classes from 8 to 12 and 13 to 17, and so we were choosing the films maybe based on like a different subject, and after we had the discussions about bullying, about families, about divorce of parents, and it was very good because kids were feeling very safety there, because parents were not allowed to come in that discussion. We also understood that it's not only like that kids had the opportunity to express themselves, but it also changed their habits, and they understood that to express and to speak about something, it's very important, not only receive the image, but also to express themselves.
The project somehow ended.
Yeah, it's ended because so it was non-commercial project, and after COVID started, so we didn't manage to continue, and also that we didn't have really opportunity to find the funding for this, and after both me and Anuga were super busy to jump again to this project, and so we just quit, unfortunately.
For now, maybe.
For now, maybe one day.
It's difficult. It's difficult to continue with projects. I mean, maybe at the time it was giving you passion because you're a mother as well, and you know, very often we're driven by something that we want to do for our kids, and then spread that love. Yeah, you know, to other children.
It's you're right, because all this, and I think ideas which I have, it's all the time. It's not the random ideas came from muses or somewhere. It's always come from my kids or from my family, that I know that there is a need of something. So you're right that it came also from my kids.
I'm trying to bring you to your current relationship, which is also your partner in crime. No, your partner in life, Nik Voight.
Yeah.
Your latest film, you work together.
Yeah. Yeah.
How is that experience? How is it? I think like everybody wants to know, because I also work with my husband. How is it? How was this experience for you, working with your husband?
I was thinking that we will never work together, but today in the evening we have a meeting with our protagonist for our next film, which we will do together again. Of course, it was very difficult because I'm workaholic. I can't really stop and Nik can have these borders, that when he works and when it's a family time. And for example, but I can't really follow these rules that so now we are at home, so we need to have the family time. And sometimes when I started speaking about the work, when we are with the kids or family and we are doing something together, so he was mad that now it's our family time, just stop working, stop speaking about the project.
Maybe it's a British thing, because I get that too. No?
Maybe European, yeah, maybe.
But But these cultural differences,
Yeah.
how is that? Because your previous partners were Georgian,
Yeah. They were Georgian.
and now Nik is British.
Yeah.
Are there difficulties because of the
It
cultural
is.
kind of differences, background?
I think it is, and I think somehow that even though that he lives in Georgia, and it might be difficult for European, I think for me in some cases it's more difficult because I never had chance to spend enough time in England to understand his culture, and somehow there are some things which I don't really understand.
Such as?
Doesn't matter.
Like, why do they have tea at 5 p.m.? No, I'm joking.
The
Okay,
tea
yeah.
with milk, it's also something, it became very mine already, but but on the same time it's very interesting, I think, because it's in Georgia, for example, with a Georgian partner, it's very easy because you can say something, and Georgians also, they say something and they mean 20 more things. So to speak with Georgian, it's very easy because they can understand exactly what you mean. You can say only like a 90s, for example, and they can understand all the background, what you mean.
When you're talking about 90s, of course, like
Yeah.
if you're talking to Georgian and you probably have so many reference points, like
Yeah.
with one word that means so many things, but for someone who didn't live here,
Yeah.
they won't
Yeah.
have a clue.
For Nik, it was like time for joy and happiness and like a music and all these things. And for us, it was total opposite. So
Yeah.
it's really like,
Tony Blair came to power. It's like this hope, 1997, this British, and meanwhile in Georgia,
Yeah.
war, right?
yeah, and like making a big like a dinner for the whole yard together, because like some family had maybe potatoes and someone had just garlic, so everyone were collecting what they had and have this like a huge dinners in the yard. But my parents really did a lot that we didn't take it as we were not traumatized with this situation.
They had an opportunity to kind of safeguard you from all the difficulties.
For doctors that time it was no salary or anything, but mainly the situation in the evening, what they created, that it was, I always remember that time as a nice family time, even though that there was no electricity, no heating, no water, nothing, but it was us, and my dad brought this like a iron, some kind of a heater where you put the woods and heat the house.
Wood burner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was fun. Fun. Yeah.
You come from a family of medics, doctors.
Yeah.
And was it expected from you that you will kind of follow on this path?
Honestly, I had the total freedom to choose whatever I want, but in a medical sphere.
Do whatever you want.
Exactly.
Only in medicine.
But
Yeah.
also that I didn't have any like other preferences or ideas to choose some other professions, because also my grandma was also a doctor, so it was all the time like all the subjects in a family,
all the discussions,
everything was about the medical sphere. And I remember that when I decided to become a director, it was very funny that I was I think 13 or 14 years old, and I was with my cousin, and one girl, my cousin's cousin, also was on a birthday, and like kids were talking that who wants to become who, and I said, so I wanna be a doctor, and that girl said, my cousin's cousin said that I wanna be a director, and I remember that time, the first time I understand that there is a profession of being director.
There's something beyond medical field, yeah? There's life beyond.
But it's not only about beyond the medical field, because it was also other kids. Someone said that I want to be an engineer. Someone said also like other things, journalist. But I remember that night I couldn't blink. I was all the time thinking that I want to be a director. But funny is that that girl is a doctor now. And I don't have a close relationship with her, but all the time I think that maybe somehow we just swapped the
jinx. Something happened that night. Yeah. Maybe it's because you were not sleeping that night.
Maybe I just sent something.
Yes, you swapped it. But so when you were making the film about your grandmother, who she was a medic as well. She's still alive?
No. She died in 2012. But why I was making because my grandma's family was a German family. Also, that they were quite famous family in Georgia because they were like a family
from Germans who came to Georgia in the 18th century. Or?
So mainly, it's not that line. So my great grandpa was invited. He was very, very famous Swiss mathematician, Leonard Euler, and he was invited by the Catherine II in St. Petersburg, and after his line came to Georgia, so it's a long line, and finally, so his great child appeared in Georgia. And he was who made the first pharmacy in Georgia.
No.
It's a German.
German.
And maybe you remember on Leonida Street this GPC pharmacy, old pharmacy. That was my grandma's house where she was raised until 14. And on the first floor it was a pharmacy, on the cellar
with wooden shelves,
exactly,
which are still there.
Yes, which are still there, but when she was 14, so her father was shot, and her sister and her
during
mother
the Stalin repressions.
Yeah, and they were sent to Kazakhstan, and she had like a crazy experience because she was there for 7 years, and she cheated the Soviet Union to escape to Russia to have an education. When she was 60, and she secretly went to university and passed to the university, even though that she had a stamp in a passport that she can live only in Kazakhstan. And it was amazing stories, which she was all the time telling to us, and I thought it's important also to record all the stories, and I make a film about this.
Oh, I'd love to see the film. Where can we watch it? Is it available?
It is available, but and I can send you the link.
It's in Georgian only?
Only in Russian.
Only in Russian?
Yeah, because she spoke Russian.
Right. Yeah. But could she speak Georgian or not, Grandma?
Not really. Not really.
Wow, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
So the whole story about this ancestral link, you know it from your grandma.
As he was like a very famous mathematician, so I was still teenager. The German embassy decided to chase all the line that to not lose our genetics, and they published the book about him. And they included us, our name, me, my brother, my sister, and my cousins to follow our line. That because he was really he was called as a king of math. So he was really.
Have you ever considered making a family tree? Yeah. Is there any photos available of him or like any?
Yeah.
Yes.
Not with us, but no.
No, obviously. Yeah. I mean. You can Photoshop it now. Hey, that's my famous great grandfather. No, but images. Yeah.
So you can Google it. It's
The film that you were working with your husband Nik, your latest film called Magic Mountain, and it took you quite some years to, and isn't it like when your relationship began, when you started filming? Yes?
No. We met first, but when we met, we met in Baku. When we met there, so...
Was it instant, kind of the cling?
Yeah.
Yes.
We immediately understood that something really happened.
Special.
Yeah, special. And even though that I lied to him and I said that, so I'm married, so nothing can happen in between of us. But in 3 weeks he came to Georgia after. So
I like that. Driven by passion. Yeah.
And in Baku, I said, once I told him that I had some illness and I nearly died, and da-da-da. And I was talking about tuberculosis, which I had, and he was really surprised at why I keep this secret. And after, when he came to Georgia, so he said that, so it's why you're keeping this as a secret. And I said that, so it's a very big stigma, because I don't want to be stigmatized. I don't want that my daughters will be stigmatized that I am an ex-TB patient. So we decided to make a film about this, and that's how our journey started.
The film is called Magic Mountain. Yeah. And it took, is this normal for a documentary to take that long? Is this a normal kind of cycle?
Maybe 9 years. It's not very typical, but yeah, there are films which take like 14 or 10 years. But with a documentary, I think all the films which we are doing, because we do films like 2-3 films on the same time. And it always takes 3, 4, 5 years to make it, because we observe the situations, we follow the situations, and of course we have some kind of an idea where we want to finish, but it's life, so we can't really predict what will happen. So we depend on the situation.
What is the most difficult thing in documentary filmmaking, in your experience?
I think it's ethic of documentary filmmaker. Because sometimes you feel that it's a gold what you have in your hand, but after you need to think if you are allowed to put it in a film, because it's a real people. You can't really damage life of real people who you are filming, even if it's very good for a film.
How is it related to telling the truth? And like, whose truth? Your truth? Their truth? His truth?
Yeah, of course. Because editing after shows to the audience the nature or character of the protagonist. And in that time, the directors are some kind of gods creating the reality. But that is, I think, that is quite complicated thing for me when I think, because audience knows that they watch the real people and it's not an actors. So how we show them people, that's how they will accept or love them. And I think that is important, that we won't play too much.
Or not love them.
Or not, or yeah, or hate them, yeah.
So it's a huge responsibility in a way.
I think so.
You know, I understand it like in journalistic terms, because we have this responsibility, as you say. We don't want to harm anyone who is trusting us to tell their story.
The difference between journalism and documentary filmmaking is that films stays forever. If it's a good film, and even if it's not a good film, it will stay for the next generations. And I guess that's why it was a problem for the Minister of Culture, that there is so much criticism about Bidzina Ivanishvili, but she understood that the film will show maybe for to the next generation his vandalism. Well,
let's put it in a context, because people may not know. So we were going to, you know, in the introduction, when I was introducing you and I said film director, mother of 3, breast cancer survivor, and I want to talk about this. I also wanted to say a survivor of a very open scandal with Georgia's culture minister. And she's quite a feisty woman. Tea Tsulukiani, who was previously justice minister, and there was this very open, unpleasant experience for you with her, because she did not like your film, The Magic Mountain. And you've mentioned also Bidzina Ivanishvili. He is Georgia's richest man, the most influential. He's now back in politics, billionaire. Here you are, you spent 9 years making the film that is doing really well in international festivals. And then in your own home country, you have this very unpleasant experience with the Minister of Culture, who's picking on you specifically.
When I heard it, it was quite stressful for me, because mainly she understood what she was doing, what she was aiming. Because to be a documentary filmmaker in Georgia, it's not an easy, because mainly I work in the regions, and in Georgia still this idea that woman needs to be in a kitchen. So to be a filmmaker, a documentary filmmaker in the rural areas, and to show that you are a strong personality and you have right to do something and dictate how they need to do or what they need to do, it's quite difficult. And during her interview also, she didn't call my name, she was calling me female director. She didn't call my name. And of course, she female director who made a bad film. So of course it was somehow tarnishing my name and reputation as a filmmaker. But now I think that it's really a compliment for me. If I somehow tease them, that it means that I'm doing the right things. Because that it's a fact that Bidzina Ivanishvili destroyed the cultural heritage. And I filmed it. And it's, of course, they try to hide everything, and it's only Magic Mountain which keeps the history of that building. Because someone told that it's only 12 pictures of this building, which was built by the Tsar Romanov. And it's a very important document now. Now my film is a cultural heritage.
Yes, absolutely. Such a legacy in history, and so sad to see that it's just gone.
Yeah.
Poof, it's all gone.
Yeah, because also I think in Georgia that there is a problem that we try somehow to forget our history. And I think that is a problem why we still consider as a post-Soviet country. Even after more than 30 years, we are not proud of the Soviet Union, but if we don't remember, if we don't realize, if we don't discuss this history, it will be repeated again. And I have a feeling that now it's happening again, this. Because what, for example, happening in a culture with Tia Zulgiani, what's happening now about Georgian National Film Center, all these films which are censored, it is the same what was happening during the Soviet Union.
So what do you think is the way forward?
We have these protests going on, and first it was like a union of the filmmakers, and we're boycotting now Georgian National Film Center. We all the time thinking that what we can do. We don't apply for funding. We don't have for film funding. We don't give our films for the events which Georgian National Film Center is organizing, and it's about 500 filmmakers are protesting. So I think it's about 98% of filmmakers in Georgia.
Last year was also quite difficult for you because you were diagnosed with breast cancer.
When I got this news, yeah, of course I was shocked, and it was the first question came to my mind: how many times I should die? Because just like 12 years ago, I was survivor of tuberculosis, and after the breast cancers, of course, it wasn't easy. But at the same time, I think now, when just recently I got a very good news that everything is fine. Of course, it's not only fighting with for life. It's also understanding your body and understanding yourself. And somehow, because for me, my hair was very important, because I had like a big red ginger hair, and it was some kind of I thought that it was identity for me. And of course, the breast was very important for me. Everything what I liked in myself, I lost.
Like your red hair?
My red hair, my body, because my body changed a lot because of hormones. And I have only one breast now, and I'm not planning to have any
reconstructive surgery.
Yes, any other surgery. So it's also understanding yourself, that who you are, that your body is not you, and to accept your body in a different shape, and to start loving yourself again.
Just the way you are.
Just the way you are.
Is there any element of kind of humiliation. You know, I had a couple of experiences where you have to go and get your breast checked after I had my son. I had some issues, and last year actually, when my sister was diagnosed with breast cancer, I went to this clinic and there was like a long line of women, male doctor. Like in my experience, they're always male doctors, and I just didn't really like the way they treat women. You know, I understand they're busy, I understand they're dealing with a lot, but it just really kind of makes you feel like you're a thing.
Yes. For me, the biggest problem was when they told me that I need chemotherapies, because I knew that I will lose my hair. And when they told me, I started crying. And it was really big shock for me, and I couldn't stop. And the doctor said that, okay, can you leave the room and cry outside, because I have other patients waiting for me. Oh. And I was so destroyed that I understood that I'm just a piece of meat there.
Thing.
Yeah.
You're not a human being.
Yeah. And I was really totally down after that. But
I can't believe it.
Yeah, imagine. First of all, there is really not enough women doctors and surgeons mainly. But I think how they are taught to be doctors, this is different. That they need to be strong, they are not human, they're just professionals.
Okay, 2024.
Yeah.
Are you making new films this year?
Yes. And now I'm working on 2 films, but it's always like this, that I try to work on 2 films because I never know how long it will take. And one is very interesting, and the working title is Wave, and it's about the filmmakers movement against the system. Yeah, because I started following this movement from the day one, when just few of the filmmakers united, and they say that it can't continue like this. We need to fight for our freedom of expression.
Finally, you know, in this podcast, it is talking to women who are living their lives true to their calling, like you are, a filmmaker. You knew it at the tender age of 12, that's what you wanted to be. For those who want to be in filmmaking, I have a friend who's more than 50, and that's her calling. She doesn't know where to begin. Where do you begin? Or for those who are 12, what's your advice?
I don't know, just take a camera and start filming, and understand that if you really want to do that. Because I don't really believe of, maybe it's not good to say, but I don't really believe of this academic studies of filmmaking. I think you just need to do and practice more than to read the books about the filmmaking. You need to read the book about different things, but I think most important is just to do something. And everyone can just film something with their camera, come home, just edit and see how it works.
Just do it. Even in journalism, you know, you don't need a university degree. If you're curious, if you want to go and tell a story, you can find a way. Thank you so much. There might be more questions, I hope, from the listeners and viewers, and then it means that we can come back and ask you more questions.
You're more than welcome.
But for now, I'm very, very grateful. Thank you so much, Mariam Chachia, for being in this podcast and for your time.
Thanks.